Daren Millard, what's shaking, man? Welcome to the show.
Is that real brick behind you?
I'd like to say that I
Looks
put
really
them up
cool.
brick by brick,
Yeah,
but that would
that's
be
the
a
podcast right there. Brick
that would
by brick.
that would be a fib, as they call it, a fib. Growing up, no, this is a very expensive Amazon wall
Looks really cool
that ships in a day in a box.
in a box, and it's not
In a
very
box.
heavy.
Yeah, it's all right. I don't mind it. It's okay. It's it's just one of those things that it's fun to have, and just it's kind of gives a little whatever. I'm in a basement. I got to dress it up a little bit, So
For sure. At
it's
least you
all
have
good.
basements. We don't have basements in Vegas.
No, you do not.
It's
You,
too hard. If you have a basement in Vegas, that means you're super rich. That you've been able to,
dig into the desert. Yeah.
the Caliche
You just
stone.
go out. There's
Yeah,
miles and miles and miles of things. So you just go out.
and they keep going out and up and
Yeah.
closer to the mountains and not really mountains where you are. They're mountains here. We call them
Yeah.
mountains, but they're not really mountains where you are. They're like hills where you are.
In Vancouver, where I've got
Yeah,
all the mountains around
you
me.
have
Yeah.
all the mountains. Those are
I,
real mountains. We have like little hills ish.
It's okay. I've been up them. I've been up in Charleston in February when it's snowing, and my mind was blown.
Yeah.
But
Chains today required to go to Mount Charleston.
chains.
Yep, we got some snow
How about that?
up
Well, I was
there.
thinking about coming down in February for Knights and Leafs, so maybe it'll hold off just a little bit for that time frame, and we can get up there. But my guest today, Daren Millard, friend. Been a few years. We just finally met in person this
I know,
year.
it's crazy.
For the first time, but it's been a handful of years since the beginning of this pod. You've been here since the beginning, and we've had some changes and a few things since that time. So I've been dying to talk to you. I was really excited to finally meet you at the Knights game in Vegas a couple of months ago, and here we are. And welcome to the show. I really appreciate you coming on, Dude Will, and making the time, buddy. So.
I loved just hanging out at the hockey game the other night
Mhm.
because you just came over and we were hanging out on our set, which overlooks the rink, and we
Yeah.
were just basically just watching a hockey game together, which was the coolest thing. So I was able to still work. Our producer was there with us, and we were just watching a hockey game while we were catching up, which is the most Canadian thing to do in
It
Vegas.
really is. It was a total pro move too, because like there was some action going on, and I'm sure this happens to you every single day, but being able to be involved in the action, still hold a conversation, it was great. So, but we had a lot and have a lot to catch up on, as far as when we actually get a chance to sit down for a meal in Vegas and
Yeah.
hang out. But in the process, you were just in Seattle for the Winter Classic yesterday. There's a whole bunch of stuff you've been up to. So I'll tell you what. Let me get this thing going properly and tell everybody, Daren Millard, what do you do, man?
I do a lot. I do a lot of different things through the course of my activity, and there was about a point like 7 years ago where I said I am never ever turning down any type of opportunity to do something cool and fun. So I've kept that promise to myself. I kind of burn it on both ends, which you are very aware of during your line of work. But right now my main job is television host of the Vegas Golden Knights. So pregame show, intermissions, post-game show. I also do a 2-hour radio show on our flagship station, daily radio show here in Vegas that I can do out of our TV studio. So it takes us right up to I take off a radio headset and I put on my TV microphone and it's good. That's a lot of fun. To do a podcast called the Chirp, which has been around for 6-7 years, and that's sort of my personal pride and joy that I do purely for me, and partner with the National Hockey League with that about 4 or 5 years ago, which is a big thrill to start something on your own and then expand on it and have a partner like the NHL and that shield, which we all know, that
Absolutely.
shield, which is a lingo on its own. You can't use the shield. You can use the shield. There's the shield on the screen, the National Hockey League crest, to be partnered with that, which allows me all kinds of cool conversations. And that keeps me in touch with the league a little bit in outside of just the Vegas Golden Knights world. And then I do Olympic Games every couple of years when my schedule permits it through the Olympic Broadcasting Service, and covered various sports in Tokyo. And I'm going to Paris and hopefully in Italy in 2 years, and keep my hands in a little bit of everything.
I may see you in Paris. I'm going to be over there, so we'll
Really?
see. It's going to be kind of a gong show, and
Yeah.
I've spent most of my time in Europe with my real job, and we're all gearing up for the disruption of the summer, games.
Yeah.
But Paris is a wonderful place to be in the summertime, so you're going to love it.
Well, Parisians get out of the city. I've been to Paris a few times because my brother-in-law lives there, and it's fun. He tells us exactly when to show up and when
Yeah.
it's a little bit slower. The Olympics will be different, and I will do exactly what I did at the other games. I've covered a bunch through Sportsnet, and then I was with the Olympic Broadcast Service in Tokyo. And primarily, you don't get to see anything. You're just on a bus going to the venue. Then you come back from the venue and you sleep. And so it's really the worst avenue to ever experience a city because you don't get to experience the city.
Well, and the funny thing is that if Vegas makes it to the Stanley Cup final again or deep in the
Yes.
playoffs, you're going to hit the goalpost
Yeah, it's going
going
to be
from one to the
ridiculous.
next. It's going to
Yeah,
be nuts.
I
But
will not be very popular in my house.
listen, you said something earlier about saying yes, right?
Yes.
And I'm a big proponent. I put an episode out a little while ago. I'm a massive proponent of saying yes. I'm a firm believer that when you say yes, you get answers. Whether they be positive or negative, you got to take them, to those opportunities, and say yes to every single one of them. And sometimes they're going to work and sometimes they're going to not, but you're going to get answers. And it's going to afford you traveling around. Maybe the family will be able to come, whatever it's going to be. But I think all the yeses so far have, I mean, at least since I've known you, have worked out pretty well. So, congrats on those moves. Now, as far as balancing uh, this opportunity that came to you, and that
Yes.
this we'll get into this on the sort of how did you get from Brandon, Manitoba to Vegas, but leaving Sportsnet after being an original. Was that the opportunity that was presented that moved you there, or did you kind of take a break and then this kind of opportunity came to you, or was it
Yeah,
presented and then you moved?
it's sort of happened at the same time, but it didn't happen at the same time, and I'll explain that. When Vegas came into the league, I was still at Sportsnet, and there was an expansion draft that was held in conjunction with the NHL awards in Vegas, and I got to co-host the expansion draft where we announced all the players that the Vegas Golden Knights had selected from all the other teams with Catherine Tappan. So they did the NHL awards on one side, and then they would pop over to us for a couple minutes. So we had this great stage, and I got to meet the few people that were part of the organization at that point. They had a coaching staff. They had met general manager, assistant general manager. Kelly McCrimmon and George McPhee are still here right now. There's my Shih Tzu tracking down the intruders into the house. But we did. So I was on the ground floor then, but I was still working at Sportsnet. And then we talked about potentially, because I knew so many people involved with the Vegas Golden Knights, we talked about potentially me leaving Sportsnet and going working for Vegas, but I still was under contract and it just didn't make sense at that point. Then there was some cutting at Sportsnet, and a bunch of us originals were
Mm,
casualties of that. And I had a year where I didn't work, and it was crazy, stressful, but in retrospect, and I promised myself at the time I'd never say it was a really good thing, but it was a really good thing.
mhm.
And I got to sort out some opportunities, and Vegas resurfaced. And because I wasn't still with Sportsnet, it was a perfect marriage at the time. And I've been here for going on 5 years, 5.5 years with the Vegas Golden Knights, which is I've never worked for a team before, and it is the coolest experience going from network television to where every game is its own, and you walk out of the studio and you don't care who won or lost because you're going to do the next game in 3 nights or the
Right.
next week. To now having skin in the game and being part of it, it's a real big thrill and very different.
I remember listening to, in Toronto, and we grew up through Joe Bowen and all those
Yeah,
guys coming through there. And there's always that thing of, well, you can't be too biased. You still have to kind of call the game. But he was always like, go
yeah.
for it. So that must have been, did you come into that going, okay, am I doing the Joe Bone, or do I still have to balance it out and play the middle guy here?
That's a great question, and nobody's ever asked me that, but I did think about it. So, your instincts are correct about, that being a challenge, and, yeah, I didn't know how much to play the home team card, how
Yeah,
much to, look at it objectively, which I'm used to. In my entire career, I never had, going other than working at the Brandon Wheat Kings, I never had a home team. So it was really, interesting to sit down and try to talk myself through it. Now, our focus is very much VGK, but if they do something wrong or there is a couple of performances that aren't up to par, you got to acknowledge them. But
yeah.
it certainly is. We probably focus more on the VGK as a team and the athletes more so than we do the other team. But as far as analyzing the game, I think it's pretty similar to what I did at Sportsnet, if
And
that makes
then
sense.
amazing things happen like this, which is, for everyone watching at home, is a picture of Mr. Millard holding the Stanley Cup over his head, which is an incredible feeling. You're the second Stanley Cup uh, person that I know that's actually been a part of a team that's won one. My neighbors won one with the St. Louis Blues, and it was really, really cool. And to see that. So this is an interesting thing for me, because the fact you're holding it over your head is a very interesting, because there is a rule about that, I
There is.
believe, in the
Yeah.
NHL. So you have to get permission from the fellas, right? Is this how this
Yeah.
works? Yeah.
You either have to win it, have been a winner, or you have to get approval from the keeper of the Stanley Cup or the keepers of the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
It gets a little loose the week after you win a Stanley Cup. Like team
Right.
employees are allowed to or will be afforded the opportunity to lift it over their heads, which I am. And the keepers of the cup are all in favor and allow us to do that kind of thing. So, yeah, I've been around the Stanley Cup. I've been to Afghanistan with the Stanley Cup. I've been around the Stanley Cup. I watched it presented on the ice with Sportsnet for 10 or 12 times. And I've always watched it with that neutrality of I can't hoist it or there's the rules with it. On that night, that on June 13th, when the Vegas Golden Knights won it, I was part of the club, and I took it
Amazing.
from Mark Stone was leaving the ice, and it was the right, and I kind of was watching him as I was doing some of my duties with VGK, and I said to Mark, "Can I have it for a second?" And he was the captain, gave it to me as a Manitoban to Manitoban, which is kind of cool. In as I look at it,
Yeah.
how the things work, and he gave it to me, and I was able to hold it. And Chris Costas, my buddy who drives the Zamboni with the Vegas Golden Knights, happened to be there to snap the pictures. I hadn't even thought of that part, but he snapped the pictures, and it's something that I look at every day. It's on my wall just outside my
Yeah.
office, and seeing those pictures that you just put up makes me smile. I never thought I would get to do that. Right. I
Yeah, it's
never
funny.
thought I would get to do
It's
that.
incredible to me, because we as Canadian kids, and not every Canadian kid, but definitely
Yeah.
anyone born between 1955 and 1995, probably.
Yeah.
Now it's split off into soccer and other things, but there was definitely it's all about the Stanley Cup,
Yeah.
and I've found it very interesting that you sometimes practice with them as a practice goalie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I
Yeah.
hear this? So I my brain was racing about this. Would have been really entertaining, because I was going to ask you if you always bring your gear to the rink in the off chance that they got to call you in. But on the flip side to that, if calling the Stanley Cup like this, imagine this story: calling the Stanley Cup, both goalies go down. They've got nobody else, and you're up in the booth with your gear, and you got to come into game 3 or 4 or something. Because yeah, and then just
Like an e-bug.
like an e-bug, and
Yeah.
I imagine you have to have a certain amount of games that actually get your name and scripted on it.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that have been something? When I learned that you practice with them a bit, and you take some shots and stuff, I'm like, you must. Is your gear on standby? Is it like
I
ready to go in the off chance?
We do everything out of the practice rink. The only time that the Golden Knights are at the big rink is to play games. They don't do morning skates. They don't do it
Yeah.
other than team picture day, one day of the year.
Yeah.
Everything's at the practice rink, and I will admit my gear stays at the practice rink just in case somebody doesn't want to practice that day, which is
Sure.
usually how I get in there, or they're going to give somebody a day off, or there's a rehab, players who are injured, who are coming back from injury. They'll ask for a goaltender to be out there, and I fully volunteer myself. I
Amazing.
talk to the coaches all the time. Hey, do you need somebody? Because I love that workout, and I love getting to know the guys on that level. So yes, my gear is always at the practice rink. I never want to miss a skate because I didn't have my gear there. So it
What
stays.
what's your practice goals against average and save
It's not
percentage?
great. It's not great. Kelly McCrimmon, our general manager, is another Prairie guy. He's always joking about my age and like, I don't want you to get hurt out there. That's always the thing. We can't afford to get you hurt because we got the television thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I say, Kelly, I don't get hit a lot, so the chances of me getting hurt are knocked down compared to the normal goaltender in that regard. But it is a thrill,
Yeah.
and I do get to know some of the guys on a much deeper level. Zach Whitecloud jokes that he'd like to see a lot less of me because he's been banged up last couple of years. So he's now to the point where he doesn't want to see me as much. But the other guys are great, and the team practices are fun because I do chirp the heck out of everybody, and there's a running commentary out there. So those are a lot of fun. The guys are used to it now.
Well, you got a podcast called The Chirp. It's only natural.
Exactly.
You know what
I
I'm
come
saying?
by it honestly.
It's your superhero profile.
So I wanted
Uh,
to call that podcast Pigeon Talk because in hockey, calling somebody a pigeon, that's a
yeah,
slang for you idiot in
right.
hockey talk. And I wanted to call it Pigeon Talk. And a good friend of ours talked me into saying, no, call it the Chirp. And he did up the artwork and it became perfect. So you don't always know exactly the right path. And it's good to take advice from others.
Brandon, Manitoba to
Mm.
Sportsnet to Vegas. Let's talk about that. Darren, how did you do it?
I was an average hockey player in Brandon. Loved the game, but not a great student. And played a little bit of junior hockey when I was leaving high school or in high school, and wasn't very good at that. And all my friends were going to university, and I had developed this habit of doing announcing in the rink, not play-by-play announcing, but the goal scored by number 12, Brett Donnelly, that kind of thing. And so I kind of had a passion for that and started helping out a little bit on some broadcasts and thought, oh, I might as well go to radio. And our radio person in Brandon, Rick Dillabo, was his name. He was the Wheat Kings play-by-play guy, and we had a family connection there. So I sat down with him, and he encouraged me, and I went to broadcasting school in Saskatoon and interned at a couple of places like Melfort and Portage la Prairie, and got a job in Brandon working with Darren Dreger and
Mm.
doing Wheat Kings. And that was, I also did farm reports, Brent. I did wheat prices. I did news, a lot of news, which I think was an amazing training background for sports where you don't know what's coming. You got to be uncomfortable with talking about things that maybe you're not as interested in. That kind of line. I did swap and shops. I did all kinds of funeral announcements in Yorkton. I did those. You don't want to screw up a funeral announcement.
No,
That's pressure
no.
because people are all listening, and you do not, especially in Yorkton where there's a lot of Ukrainian names, and that took me a lot of pressure to get those down. So I had a lot of like a wide ranging background of experiences, city council, and but primarily focused on hockey, and worked in radio in Brandon before I got a job at Global Television and then CKND in Winnipeg.
The everyone I've talked to a few broadcasters this season. Joe Tilley had Joe Tilley on a couple weeks
Oh,
ago, which
nice.
was
Love Joe.
awesome.
Yeah.
You know, he I'm a Toronto guy, so that was great. And everyone has these amazing stories of like going up to Dawson or going up to Tuck and
Yeah.
calling the fishing report. Well, everyone has to kind of get their way around. But there was, I think, probably was it late '80s when when Sports Page or whatever the
Yeah,
breakthrough came with Jim Taddy and kind of those guys had come through, and that's TSN. There was sort of this whole thing all at once,
that's what I went to
and
Winnipeg for. I did Sportsline in Winnipeg with Gene Principe.
there we go. Gene's still out
Yeah,
there doing it too. Like,
yeah.
and so a lot of the old school kind of people that came through that process to me are all, the pioneers of this. And you guys would have pioneers before you, but I'm just
Mhm,
saying for this rise of sports television and this rise of like sports talk and sports, it just blew up and went nuts. And it just seemed that they grabbed all the top talent. I talked to Jody Vance, like everyone just
mhm.
kind of came and got this opportunity with Sportsnet, which really was awesome to see and see all of you still doing so well.
It
Like
was
everyone's
amazing.
amazing.
When Sportsnet was starting, I had 2 job offers. I had one from TSN and one from Sportsnet, and, uh, the TSN job proposal, we'd been talking, came 2 days after Sportsnet made an official offer,
Mhm.
with, their, president at the time, and I accepted that, and I did like, nobody turned down, like, T who's gonna turn down TSN? And
Right.
I was like, "Well, they were first, they were." I know it was only by a matter of a couple of days, and they couldn't believe that I turned them down. They just could not rationalize why you would go with a startup that hasn't even been on the air yet, over TSN. And I was going to be with Darren Detition, and we were going to do this Darren thing, and and I always think that that's. I mean, who knows how it turns out from there, but that was one of the crazy decisions at the time, and trying to do. I was at a family reunion in middle of Alberta at the time, and trying to solve this dilemma. But I had 2 job offers, and then TSN came back to me about 3 months later, after we were already on the air. Made another job offer,
Mhm.
and Bell ended up purchasing. Uh, uh, TSN at the time, so we were both owned by the same company. So it shut down any movement. Otherwise, I probably would have been at sports.
It's interesting to me that um, TSN, because everyone's is doing like no one leaves, like we get
No,
accustomed to everybody. So um that is and for you certainly like I mean you've been there so long, and we touched on it a little bit earlier about moving to Vegas, but this moment of
whoa, look at that guy.
where they
He's young.
announce your movement and that you're leaving, and so this has to come to like this very tough moment for you when you but it's also probably surreal. It's kind of like you're constantly in a dream state now. You
Yeah,
go from doing the news and doing the crop reports and doing the thing, and then it's a startup and the startup's doing well, and then there's this opportunity. So that is that decision to leave Sportsnet to Vegas. um did you see the writing on the wall as far as like, hey, they're probably going to
no.
make some changes soon, or I'm going to just go ahead and take another flyer here and do it?
My contract was up, so I was meeting with my boss, to the same person that hired me the 20 years ago. Oh, so good relationship. We met. It was a place in PI because I was out there for the summer, and I thought it was for a contract extension. And he told me that they had some difficult decisions to make, and I was on a string of financial. Which is good in a way. I was doing well financially, but it also made me a casualty. So I was blindsided. I will fully admit I didn't see it coming, and I was shocked, and I was devastated, and I had no idea where I was going to go next, and I was angry at times. And thank goodness my family and my wife was so supportive, but I had no clue. And but you had lean on your relationships that you've worked on over the years, and that's it. It took a full winter, because when it happened, it was in the summer, so everybody's got their teams in place for broadcasting for the winter, and
Mhm.
hockey was my specialty, and still is. So I had to wait a full calendar year. So it was probably halfway through the winter where things started percolating with Vegas, and started hitting a certain amount of pace.
Is that discussion at home? And I'm sure I don't know how many other offers you got. Obviously, it's a change, but Is that discussion at home like, "This is an opportunity, what do you think?" And it's
Yeah.
like, there's some reluctance, or it's like, "Let's pack up, let's go, let's do this."
Yeah, well, my wife is from Hamilton and worked for the Toronto Maple Leafs coming up. So the Southern Ontario was what she knew.
Mhm.
We have a place on PEI that we use that we go to in the summer, but the Southern Ontario is our home. So the idea of taking our children, who were grade 9 and grade 6 at the time, uh, to or grade 8 and grade 5 at the time, taking them to Vegas, like, that's Vegas and the
Absolutely.
outer parts, and it's not what everybody sees, but you're talking to your wife about moving to Las Vegas, that's a discussion that you have to go through, and she was a absolute, great supporter of it, and let's make it we called it the Great Millard Adventure. We'll give it a shot, and we'll see how it goes, and now she's, like, loves it more than I do, and I couldn't love it anymore, and our kids, love it,
Yeah.
and the Las Vegas community outside of the Strip is the biggest small town in the world, and there's everything that you would want in it, and it's an absolute, hidden gem if you could be on the Sphere and the Strip and all that kind of stuff.
I
It's
rarely
it's
do the
amazing.
Strip when I'm there. I love Vegas, and most of
Yeah.
the people that I know there, and we have mutual friends with Fitz and Frank Sidoris and
Yeah,
all
yeah,
and Todd Kearns, all these guys. I got friends in, Summerlin. Like, it's just everyone who lives there loves it. Now,
loves
I
it.
know a
Yeah,
handful of people that have moved away. They're, the not necessarily but the heat, but the dry, and there's a bit of the four-season missing thing. And as a Canadian, at first we probably dream of the heat, but I would imagine it eventually it runs its course.
summers are a little uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I will give it that, a
yeah.
little uncomfortable.
But I absolutely I rarely do the Strip when I'm there. I'll do a little poke around, but I'm like, I'll come out, say hi to you. I'll go out and see Fitz. I'll go out and see some people. And it's just a really great experience for me, because I just know a lot of people there, and I love going there. And it's always a different experience for me, because I'm gonna go watch my buddy Sean's little kid play hockey,
Yeah,
up in the way, and he was a really good goalie. Or I'll go check out a cover band somewhere that the guys are going to watch. So I just get like a bit of a different tour of it. So it's fun for
it's
me
2 different
always.
cities.
It
It's
really
it's the
is.
Strip,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
I call it, Scottsdale with the Strip. Like, the
gotcha.
rest of it is like Arizona, where you just have all this, amazing outdoors opportunities, and you're in the desert, and you can do biking and hiking and running and swimming and everything, or you can go to the Strip and see Gaga, or
Mhm.
go to the Sphere, or Luke Bryan, or whoever.
It's quite so. It also could be a real pain in the ass to host every day. And in your particular case, most of the people that I know there are hosting 3 days a week. Like,
Yeah.
there's just always somebody in town, somebody
Yes.
always coming by. In your particular case, when you're at a homestand, you're at the rink 3 days a week, plus plus plus. So kudos on you to balance that, because I'm not sure I could pull it off, because I mean I could pull it off from a standpoint of like, there'd be people in town I would know, but my family would be over there
Yes.
alone. So it would be a little bit of a tough balance. All right, so there's a lot of Winnipeggers there,
Yeah.
but all or Manitobans there. What is it about these? Because I know a lot of successful people from Manitoba, a lot of people that are doing great from Manitoba, and is it just so cold and you got to get out, and you got dreams? You got dreams to like move, and you just work as hard as possible to make those dreams happen, which
Yeah.
takes you to a far off land. What is it about Manitoba? Because almost everyone I know from Manitoba is is doing amazing things.
Well, I think you hit it on the head when you said you work hard. I think there's part of the pride. We're a very proud culture and community, and we love our home province, but we're not afraid to really get into it and dive right in and take chances and try to make you yourself as great as possible. And whether that's a hockey player, whether that's a coach, whether that's a broadcaster, whether it's an accountant. I know a buddy down here who's one of the great accountants in Vegas. Like we strive for great things, and there's no ego, very little ego or entitlement with Manitobans, which automatically makes us be embraced by others. And I think that part goes a long way along with the talent. You need to be good at what you do, but the lack of ego or entitlement from a Manitoban is really what we're all about.
Listen, pal, you can't have an ego when you're sharing a blanket around the ice fishing hut,
No,
you know.
you can't. I by the way, I don't ice fish. I never got ice fishing. I don't get it. I will
But
never
I know a
do it.
lot of people that
I
do.
I know, and my brother does it all the time. I'm like, I will. That was the one thing I will never do.
But
I'll
it'll bring community together.
yeah, yes, totally.
It'll
They were
bring
out there
community.
the other day and just outside of Brandon ice fishing without even a shack. They were just out. They put a hole in the ice and they were down there. I'm like, are you guys nuts?
Well, the sun's out.
Yeah, it was out. Yeah, it was a beautiful day.
W Now outside of, this wonderful picture of you holding the Stanley Cup up, in this particular journey of yours, what is your favorite sports moment then that either you've called or been a part of? I'd imagine it's gonna be extremely tough to top, actually hoisting the Stanley Cup and doing it. But, leading into that and looking back on it now, is there a favorite sports moment for you where you're just like, "I can't even believe that this happened to me?"
Yeah, one of the first times I ever went to a Hall of Fame induction and got to host that, Joe Sakic went into the Hall of Fame, and that was a really big thrill for me. Being in Kandahar in Afghanistan twice on NHL alumni trips. I know it wasn't an official sporting event. We were there to support the troops. That was an opportunity that I will never ever. Not look back on with great pride and appreciation for what our soldiers and my twin brother was posted in Kandahar the first time I went. So that I mean nobody ever gets to visit their sibling in a war zone, and I appreciate everything that our troops and the uh, coalition troops were able to do. I also the Olympic Games in 2002. When Canada won its first gold medal in 50 years, I was there. I wasn't a rights holder, but we were there working the games for Sportsnet. Being in the building for that is one of the great highlights. And I also covered curling and did play-by-play for curling when I was at Sportsnet, and loved the curling and did Manitoba championships and Manitoba and curling. That's as
Mhm.
big as it gets. So there was pressure on me to accomplish that, and that was one of those moments where I kind of figured I might have a shot of doing something more when they thought of me capable enough to call curling in Manitoba, which is the pinnacle. So those would be great memories. Vancouver. I did the bronze medal game. I didn't do the gold medal game when Canada beat the United States, but I did the bronze medal game when Finland won the bronze
Mhm.
medal. And seeing those players so happy, that was one that resonated with me as well. And different. I did Tokyo during COVID for the Olympic Broadcasting Service and did water polo and beach volleyball. Now, I never thought I'd do water polo and beach volleyball, but I was doing something new at almost 50 years old and trying something new, and that was kind of a neat thing too.
All because you said yes.
Oh, because you said yes, yes, and I have pictures on my walls here of Joe Carter and
Yeah.
Patrick Waugh and the Olympic our Olympic broadcasting team in 2010 was there. I made a lot of friends. Patrick Sharp getting a Stanley Cup. Like I just totally appreciate my kids with Patrick Kane in Chicago. One of the coolest things I did when I was at Sportsnet and our national rights. Sorry to blab on, but uh,
Good. So we're
we
here.
were Chicago and Anaheim were in like two or three overtimes one night, and we were doing the panel, and we were on Hockey Night in Canada, and which was a thrill. And Darren Pang and I were lying down on the studio floor, just lounging around watching on the big screen TV, and you kind of look back at it and go, "Was that really real? Was that actually happening on Hockey Night in Canada?" And we're just chilling out while the period's going on, waiting to do our thing.
And I guess it's possible for you to still be a fan. Like for me,
Oh yeah,
running concerts, I'm still I'm a massive fan of music. Listen to music all the time. It's on every single day. But I go into a concert now when I'm watching it, and I go, oh, I wonder how many riggers they used. Oh, I wonder, the doors are late. I wonder what's happening. Like my brain
yeah.
goes into that mode. Um, Hockey and sports in general work at such a fast pace that like hockey players or are fans of football, and you forget sometimes when they talk about their favorite teams. Um, is anything lost on you now with this position because you've got a different perspective on it a little bit as far as how the day to day works, or can you still enjoy it fully as a fan?
I think I'm more of a fan now
Mhm.
because I work so closely with our athletes and our coaches and our management that I know exposed to everything that they do. The majority of it I can't use or say, but I know what's happening behind the scenes, and I'm more uh, just blown away by the sacrifices and the hours that they put in, whether it's a coach dissecting and coming up with game plan, and being there on days where everybody else thinks the team's off for 2 days, or players rehabbing, or players travel. And I traveled all of last year, and being just put in a position where you're getting home late and then they're on the ice at 10 o'clock and I'm trying to get out of bed by 9:30. And so I'm appreciative of that. So I'm more of a fan. And now a lot of them, I know more than I ever would when I was at a national network. So you root for them. And I think I'm more of a fan that way. And I still get to turn on the TV and follow the other 31 teams and enjoy what they do. And so I think it's really increased my level of fandom as opposed to water it down or been more overwhelming.
I would imagine that that would play a bit of havoc with you though when your buddies gets traded away. So
Yeah,
that's just a bit of a thing, I would think.
we've
So
had that happen a couple of
yeah,
times, and
yeah.
yeah, it's different. Like I've had friends in the league, good friends in the league, and follow them around, but never had to like say goodbye to them or
Yeah.
shake their hand and say good luck. So yeah, that's a different element of it entirely.
Before I let you go, lots going on. Obviously, we discussed all the things that you're doing with the radio show and just being that face that everyone can count on and trust every single show. You've got the podcast. So what's the plan here? Do you have a plan to do something bigger? Are you working towards something? What will you do next?
I've always wanted to have one more experience doing national television. And I don't know whether that's going to happen, quite honestly. I've kicked tires. We've talked to a few people. It's a little uh, streamlined down here. The ESPN isn't hiring. We know what they're going through, a lot like what Sportsnet went through a few years ago, in cord cutting and trying to have costs. So they're not really adding right now. And TNT's got their stable, and they took a lot of the same people from NBC, Sportsnet. So there's not a lot of opportunities there, but I would love to do network television one more time, whether it's half a season, whether it's filling in, or whether it's a full blown opportunity. That would be cool. Just to do that one more time. If it doesn't, I'm totally fine with it because I have the best job in the world. Our broadcast crew has an amazing relationship. They're the best teammates I've ever had, and that's not taking away from Sportsnet because Kipper and Doug and John Shannon and that whole group, we're still great friends, but our broadcast crew is so tight, from play-by-play guys, Dave Gosher and Shane Knighty and Ashley Weiss and Darren Elliott and Gary Laws. We all get along amazingly well. So if nothing else happens on the national stage, I'm totally fine. And appreciative of what I've been able to do, and I don't treat my job any less than I would if it was national. It's the same thing for me, and I still do the Olympics every 2 years when that opens up the opportunity. So that's also sort of keeps me in the loop for big opportunities.
You touched on the Chirp and
Yeah.
the NHL logo and having access to the players and different executives and people from that space. That helps obviously with the NHL logo.
Oh yeah.
So I guess the possibilities are endless with the Chirp. And do you foresee that still like being a major part of you moving forward, or is it sort of like it fits in your life?
It
Uh,
fits.
it fits
It
in
has
your
to
life.
fit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to fit. If I wind things down, I would probably do more of it. I would actually like to do if if I was going to do it, I would like to put out multiple episodes a week. I
Mhm.
can't
No.
with our schedule and what we have going on, but I would love to do multiple episodes a week if I could really dial that in. But it really does fit in with everything else. It's a jigsaw. But when I go into a week, I know I'm doing a Chirp episode. Tomorrow morning, I'm doing a Chirp episode. And then I've got a game tomorrow night, and then I'm doing radio in between all of that, and another game on Saturday, and the NHL network has a couple of hits. Like it's a moving puzzle every week. So I unfortunately can't do any more than I already do with it, but it is my personal passion.
Yeah.
That is the one thing I do for me. I started that to interview friends and to have not interview, conversations with friends. I like to term it a little bit more like this. And it exposes me. I did talk to Sean Walker from the Philadelphia Flyers a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't know Sean at all. And I couldn't be a bigger Sean Walker fan now.
Mhm.
Defenseman who just is a wonderful human being and a cool personality, and that's why I love doing it. I did Zach Whitecloud a couple of weeks ago
Yeah.
for the Chirp leading into the Winter Classic. Now Zach's from Brandon, I'm from Brandon. Ended up being 45 minutes of talking about rinks in Western Manitoba, which was one of the most enjoyable conversations. My dad loved it. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. My wife was like, "That's a little too inside baseball," but it was something that I could do for me.
But that's what this is. This I do this
Yeah,
for me. I do this to learn about people. That's
yeah,
it. There's
yeah.
no like, I'm a schmuck in a basement in Vancouver. I'm
With a
just saying
great
like
brick wall.
what a great fake brick wall, but I and a dog. But I do it to learn about people and hopefully people
Yes.
stop by and they go, I didn't know that about Darren, or I didn't know that about this person, or this, and it just gives them a little insight into your space
Yeah.
while I'm traveling around the world, uh, learning about other people's spaces and sharing a bit. So it's wonderful, and I really appreciate you making the time, man, because you're a busy guy. I said you were just here yesterday in Seattle, and then
Crazy.
flying, and then and we had to reschedule a little bit, and I appreciate you making the time and coming back.
I'll give you two things as we wrap it up. One, don't let rocky starts bother you if you're looking at something. The first time I was ever on the air as post broadcasting college, I was interning in Melford, and the guy that I was living with for the 2 months. I moved in that afternoon. My dad dropped me off in Melford, and he said, "I'm going to do a SJHL, Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League game in Nipawin. Flin Flon and Nipawin were playing." The Nipawin Hawks, and he said, "Do you want to come and do color?" He knew I was a hockey player. I said, "Sure." So the first thing I ever said, because there's no pregame show or anything, first
Yeah.
thing I ever said was, "So and so got the F out of the corner," and I stopped. I said the wrong word instead of puck. And that was the first thing I ever said, way back when on the air. And my play-by-play guy, Bob Krawchuk, was under the floor laughing. And I said puck about 42 times after that. So that was my debut in broadcasting. We've come along, and I haven't done this before, but I went up before we got on the air,
What a guy.
and as we logged in, and thought I'd bring on the ring that the Vegas Golden Knights gave all the broadcasters, and we were very lucky to get what they call a tier one ring. It's the same as the players, and
What a
that is it.
beaut.
Yeah, it's a little
What
big and it's awesome. I can't
What
wait for
a
my dad to
beaut.
put it on.
Do you actually and what a beaut. And I mean, I guess it's kind of an interesting one because, like, you don't necessarily wanna wear it out, but there's
No.
also a little bit of like, I got this thing. But I congratulations on that because, going from Brandon, Manitoba, and all those
There.
journeys
Yeah.
to this spot as a Canadian kid, you're not on the ice. You're kind of on the ice.
Sort of, yeah.
You're taking shots, but
Building
and
confidence, that's what
to
we
be
call
able
it.
to hoist that and get the ring. It's an interesting reward that you got on your finger there because
Yeah.
it's kind of a reward for that journey that you've taken to get you to that space. And it's almost like there's the new end. That's the new
Yeah,
beginning, is starting from there and going up.
exactly.
So
I
congrats,
can't
Darren.
wait for
That's
my
that,
dad in
that's
Brandon,
really awesome.
Manitoba to put this on at some point.
You haven't taken it there yet.
No, that, the broadcasters just got it before Christmas, so this is, like,
Amazing.
brand new.
Jeez.
That will be, during the All-Star break is my plan to get up there.
Wonderful, man. I'm really happy for your journey. I'm really happy for
I just like getting to hang out with you.
what you've accomplished. I can't wait till we can actually do a food down there. I'm going to come down there hopefully in February on my birthday and check out a game, and maybe we can eat some food and just catch up because it's been a few years and we're finally together here on a pod. So I appreciate it. So
Thanks,
that's
buddy.
great.
This has been awesome.
That's Daren Millard. This is Do Did Will, the Story of People podcast for another week. Come back next week, friends. There's more people that have stories about what they do, how they did it, and what will they do next. What's the plan? So thanks, Daren. See y'all next week.